everybody, and welcome back to another video. Today I've decided to start a brand new series on my channel that I've been working through the details on for a while now. It's where I write about different stories relating to Wings of Fire characters, almost like winglets of my own. Who better to kick off this series with other than Queen Scarlet, my favorite villain in Wings of Fire. I'll be sharing my own original short story and fan-made winglet. Please keep in mind this video does contain slight spoilers for the upcoming guidebook, though it was revealed to us in sneak peeks. But before we begin, a huge shout out to my patrons. DragonLover95, 3 Moons, Slightest Wild, Bombier, and Fizz. Thank you all so much for supporting me. Links to their social medias are in the description down below. Anyways, without further ado, let's get into the video. Princess Scarlet looked out the window of her bedroom, met with darkness and gray skies. The glass was being pelted by rain, with large streaks of merciless lightning striking the ground far below the cliffs. Days like this were always joyous to the SkyWings princess, as the fear of the kingdom allowed for much power and control. She thought she looked marvelous in the rain, her scales coming sleek and shiny from the downpour. The way the thunder boomed ominously against all other sounds, radiating through the castle's walls, was elegant to her ears. This was no weather to be flying in, and as much as she hated not being able to spread her wings, the better results of such weather were worth the price she had to pay. Scarlet stretched in bed, tossing her sheets and blankets off the side. "I'll have to get a servant to fix that before I return," she thought to herself. After staring out the window for much more time, admiring the dazzling natural bursts of lightning spreading out across the sky, Scarlet got out of bed and placed on all her storm jewelry. Times like this required their own special set, after all. She ran her tongue along the dresser cabinet knobs, trying to let muscle memory remind her of their storage place. Finally, she pulled out one of the wooden drawers, smiling with delight at the sparkling jewels. After fitting everything on and admiring what she was met with in the mirror, Scarlet made her way out of her room. Her spire of the palace was the closest to her mother's, so it was not long before she was entering the throne room. Servants and subjects darted past, some giving her disgusted looks and others avoiding catching her gaze entirely. Scarlet kept her chin up, despite the fury she was met with inside. "When I become queen soon, there'll be no looks of disdain on passing dragons when I walk by. It will only be fear and admiration, for I will be the best queen they will ever know." The throne room was full of gorgeous art, sculptures, and silk curtains. Each had the engravings of the visiting dragon who crafted them, each the most renowned artist and builder of their tribe. Scarlet was one who loved beauty, but saw it in the most dangerous of things. So to her, the works of art present, though they were indeed marvelous creations, meant little. They only depicted sceneries of nature and perspectives, not a greater picture of power or splendor. They did not influence those who saw them in the right way, or so she believed was right. "That will be one of my first changes," she thought, staring up the art that took up the large walls. "If I'm the one they are led by, then I should be the one they see. The one to remind them who has been their savior from this misery of life." Scarlet's wandering thoughts were interrupted by the entrance of her mother. Firestorm was an elegant queen, there was no denying it. Her orange scales shined in the firelight of the throne room, each necklace wrapped around her throat seeming to shimmer with reflections of 1,000 jewels. Her eyes were painted under with the juice of plants from the Mud Kingdom. Firestorm strutted in, face forward and expression unforgiving. SkyWings soldiers and advisors followed next to her, though never daring to walk even a claw closer to the queen. They seemed invisible to her eyes, the throne being her target and destination, and the only location she would arrive. Scarlet sat on a pillow next to the structure, her body straightened and stiff. The nearby SkyWings who watched the scene seemed to shudder at being in the presence of both of them. The young SkyWing princess always attended the royal meetings, listening and observing. She kept her mouth shut during them, the only time she ever restrained her tongue. "At least for now," she thought bitterly. "Any updates about the storm?" the queen asked, finally making eye contact with the dragons below her, although she never met Scarlet's gaze. "We may have something," one of them began, stepping forward. "It seems as though the storm was one of the biggest to affect Pyria in a century. None of us had ever seen one rage so furiously. It spread from the coast and now reached the mainland, where we are. Now we're the prime targets." He swallowed, his throat dry. Scarlet could hear the shakiness in his voice that he tried to drown out. He was failing miserably. Firestorm replied, leaning back against the cold stone of the throne. Any estimates on the size? We think it's almost half the size of the SkyWing Kingdom from the looks of it. Either way, it's going to affect shipments and your next art show. We're looking to maybe have to suspend things for a few weeks. A few weeks? Firestorm said, straightening. The world waits for no one. We need the supplies for me, and the contest could be cancelled for the year if it doesn't happen the day I scheduled it. Do you know how hard it is to organize events with those blubbering fools of queens? I'm sorry, the messenger replied. We just don't want to risk any dragon getting struck by lightning or carried away by the storm. Firestorm exhaled through her nose, a small stream of smoke hissing its way out of her nostrils. We'll have to delay it then, although we're going to struggle without those shipments. The entire room's annoyance was evident, the tension so thick it could be cut with a knife. Dragons exchanged glances of irritation, though none daring to go above a whisper. Firestorm twitched uneasily in the throne, her tongue flickering in and out of her mouth like a serpent. Meeting dismissed. You all may go, she said finally. Except you. She raised a painted talon at the messenger, whose eyes grew wide. I need you to talk to me more about that storm. He nodded his head shakily, walking back to the room as everyone exited. The SkyWings attending all shared worried or upset expressions, finally speaking louder after the door of the room was slammed shut. Firestorm is a horrible queen, Scarlet overheard. She stopped mid-stride, turning her head in the direction of the sounds. Hiding in a nearby corner, she saw two of her cousins gossiping. Scarlet squinted, remaining in the darkness and listening from the other side of the wall. I mean, she's canceling the biggest event of the year she makes all of us care about. In these days, there's nothing interesting that even happens in the kingdom. Slinsberg scoffed, rolling her eyes. I hate this castle and I hate this queen. More than everything, I hate this rain. I can't even go outside to clear my head. Well, at least she isn't as bad as Princess Scarlet, Summit said, shrugging. Every time I walk past her, I get the creeps. There's something seriously wrong in her head. Oh, you know Auntie would kill you if she ever heard that. Scarlet is practically her golden child. She gets away with anything, probably even murder if she attempted it. Scarlet could feel deep rage boiling at the surface of her blood. The fact that her mother even allowed dragons like this to live was beyond anything she could comprehend. So, she slipped out of the shadows and rounded the corner, smiling eerily. Well, if it isn't my two favorite cousins! Spark and Summit froze, petrified. Both looked at each other with pleading eyes. I hope she didn't hear that, their expressions seemed to say. Scarlet's smile grew wider with the fear that was written all over their scales. The way they looked at her, completely at her mercy, filled her entire body with vigor and life. It was the thing that kept her alive. You do know it's rude to ignore a princess, right? Scarlet, we're busy. What do you want? Sunspark said, annoyance taking over her fear. She seemed relieved to think that Scarlet didn't hear the words she shared with her sister. Just wanted to pop in and say hello, she began. Scarlet paused, leaning to look to the side of one of the hall windows. Don't you love this weather? It really is thrilling to see thunder shake the soil and rattle the rocks. The two looked at her through slitted and squinted eyes. Yeah, wonderful. Scarlet's smugness now brimmed with fury, though she tried hiding it with the same mask. Well, I should be off now, she said. I had some business to attend to. The two sisters only stared, their eyes judging her. The princess cursed to herself as she walked away, lost again to the rageful, bitter, and vain thoughts that plagued her. Scarlet sat in her favorite garden on the edge of the palace, the rain unforgiving and relentless. It pounded against her body, sending chills up her spine. Her body seemed to sag with the weight of the rain, yet she was feeling more alive than ever. One thing that drove her into the frenzy she was in was revenge, even just the thought of it. Before, she had only been able to resort to smaller things to get back at the ones who hated her. Stealing jewelry, telling lies, and the insults out of her own mouth were the only true way a princess could fight her enemies. But a queen? She could take to other methods. The things Scarlet wanted to do so badly, the things that occupied her mind, no matter if she was dreaming or looking at her enemy right in the eyes. Scarlet looked around herself at the columns and arches that fenced the garden. There were large gaps for observation looking down at the cliffs, though with the weather everything was coated in a thick fog. It lapped at her talons like the tide of an ocean, soon nearly enveloping her darkened form. Scarlet was no longer controlling her breathing. She let her chest rise and fall at a rapid, unnatural pace. Out of one of her nostrils came thick, billowing smoke, though blended in with the surrounding mist. They think they can talk about me however they want. It's all Mother's fault. If only she held a firm enough grasp, no one would dare let those words escape from their lips. Their tongue would be cut from their mouth in an instant if I was the one wearing the crown. One look at it, and they would have fallen on their feet, begging for mercy. Instead, they rolled their eyes and stared like I was a bother. I am the princess of the SkyWings. I am no average dragon. I am thrillingly spectacular. They will learn that the hard way, if that is what it takes to undo all the softness my mother has brought to this tribe. The sound of claws and rocks snapped Scarlet out of her thoughts, causing her head to shoot in the direction of the sound. She was able to make out the features of the incoming dragon, so that her muscles relaxed slightly. It's only Canyon. The young Skywing looked at her, his brow furrowed. Are you all right, young Majesty? His words seemed laced with genuine worry and concern. She tilted her head downward. He sat next to her in the rain. I need to be queen now, she said suddenly. Canyon cocked his head to the side. Well then, why don't you challenge your mother? We all know you'd be 1,000,000 times better than her. Or at least, I know that. It's just so unfair, Scarlet wailed. I want to, but everyone will laugh at me. How often do you see a 7-year-old princess defeat her mother in a fight? If I lose, I won't be able to chop off the heads of those who oppose me. I'll either die or be miserable for the rest of my existence. I can't keep trying to kill her. I most definitely wouldn't have a second chance. Canyon nudged her with his wing. There are more weapons in a fight than just strength, you know. Scarlet blinked away her tears to look at him. What do you mean? Well, Canyon began, Slane's words scar more than a claw wound. Dragons are all mushy inside. Trust me, you would not think your mother is, but I've spoken to her and she most definitely can be. Use that emotion and your own vengeance to stab her deeper than any blade. If you do that, there's not much else that stands in your way. The young princess sniffled, clearing her throat. You really think I can win? Of course I do! But why? Why are you helping me? Every dragon in the kingdom wants to murder me in my sleep. At least that's what they'll be thinking before I'm the one to do that to them. But what's in it for you to tell me these things? Kenny looked down at the water trapped between the blades of grass. Then he stared directly into Scarlet's amber eyes. So I want to be your king. I mean, imagine the most handsome dragon in Pyria married to the strongest, fiercest, most gorgeous queen. I think we could be unstoppable. Sarah considered this for a moment before letting her eyes fill with great fat tears. Oh, Canyon, you're right. He laughed, though more to himself. I always am. Canyon leaned back, his claws in the grass. They seemed to cut through the drenched blades of grass in seconds. This whole kingdom is going to be ours. I mean, let's be honest. Do you really think your nothing sisters can compete with you? Scarlet laughed, but the sound wasn't a cheery one. It'll be just you and me, ruling Pyria, ruling the tribe of the sky. Scarlet breathed softly to herself, looking out beyond the mountains. The cores of the world are the most beautiful, don't you think? Canyon seemed startled by her comment, glancing down. She didn't notice his unease. I like to imagine the mountain snakes slithering between the rocks, or the birds of the high sky preparing their murders of the day. And what goes on down there, she pointed to the land below, is nothing. It's empty without what lives above. None of our rain, none of our animals to keep theirs alive. They'll be dead without us. Dead without me. My mother doesn't understand these things. Canyon didn't quite know how to respond, shifting with discomfort. Yeah, I get what you're saying. A million thoughts raced through his head. I've known her my whole life, but in these moments we share, I see the part of her that causes fear. For her to believe that no one thinks any of her now, well, it'll just be the thing to help me out. Before Canyon could say anything further, another dragon walked into the garden. Young Majesty and Sir, your presence is required in the dining hall. Scarlet straightened, beginning to stand. She looked frustrated to be thrust out of her conversation and thoughts, but remained silent. Not the first time she's done that recently, Canyon observed. In the past, Scarlet would have yelled at the Skywing, but now she snapped her mouth shut before she could reply. Sudden change behavior filled the young dragon with hushed and buried anxiety, but he dared to not say a word. The dining hall was full of loud SkyWings, clinking glasses together and discussing all sorts of topics, all of which bored the princess. Scarlet sat near the edge of the table, only a chair away from her mother. "All right, everyone," the queen said finally. "Listen here." Every voice fell quiet, all eyes on her. Scarlet loathed the bitterness that grew inside of her, even from that simple action of obedience. If she had told the table of clamorous and distracted dragons to be quiet, they would have laughed, not even noticed her. Screaming little Scarlet, thinking she had power, commanding others, she would show them that she had power, that she was worth commanding them. The princess had to bite her tongue with her fangs to keep silent, digging her claws into her scales to stop from bursting in a fit of rage, using her dinner knife on her mother. Though the storms rage on, we are safe here in the palace, and I hope the dragons in the mountain villages know how much we care. For a moment, Firestorm couldn't hold in her laughter. The dragons at the table laughed with her, tears nearly coming to the surface of their eyes. "I do regret to inform you all that some of my shipments have been delayed, and our next art show has to be delayed indefinitely until the storm passes." Murmuring spread around like wildfire, disgruntled voices speaking to their neighbors. "I wouldn't have minded if a few dragons were struck on the way here, as this is more important than most of their miserable lives, but it wouldn't look great for future competitions. Not many queens want to send more dragons out on the journey when some of their own came tumbling down like the rain of the storm that killed them." Firestorm bent down for a drink, letting her lips touch the brim of her goblet. Skimming through the room still muttered, the echoes of their voices each brimming with disappointment. Firestorm continued her speech, though the sound was absent to Scarlet's ears. "My mother is weak. When I am queen, I will not care what the other rulers think unless they've given me reason to. I will not bow down to their demands, to the suggestions of a mere messenger. I will not let nature and life get in the way of my plans, as she lets them control hers." "Scarlet?" She paused, trying to look at the dragon next to her. She greeted her blank yet judging stare with cold, empty eyes. Alpine, one of Firestorm's advisors, looked at her, eyes scanning every inch of the princess's body. "You spaced out there during your mother's speech. Is everything all right?" Scarlet hadn't even noticed her mother was done talking to the group until Alpine pointed out, though she hid her surprise. "Is everything all right with you?" she snapped, inching closer. Alpine flinched, growing concerned. "I'm splendid, thank you for your concern." Her tone filled Scarlet with unbearable fury, so she dug her claws deeper into her legs. By now, she felt tiny droplets of blood trickling down her thigh. "If you're considering pulling anything tonight, don't. This is one of the biggest days of your mother's life. We're in a room with all the most influential SkyWings Imperial right now. Do not test your luck." The words flowed smoothly from her mouth like honey, yet stung like venom. Scarlet had only heard of dragonbite vipers through stories, but imagined their bite to feel just like that. A fatal sting. But not for her. Alpine continued, clearly ignoring or not taking notice of Scarlet's endless twitching. Deeper and deeper her claws dug. The more blood that trickled down, it burned. "You know, your sisters would never pull any of your stunts. You're lucky your mother favors you, because with any other dragon, you would have been out of the picture by now. She just thinks that you're funny and encourages it. Well, I don't, and I'm not afraid to say it anymore. I am tired of your disrespect. Your constant blubbering to get your way, how you can never form a thought of your own that isn't bloodthirsty or vile. You're more than evil, Scarlet. You are toxic. Your parasite, I think, needs to be removed." Alpine smiled to herself, tilting her head. "Is something wrong, princess?" Scarlet's heart skipped a beat, freezing completely in her chest. It was like time slowed down, everything else becoming a blur. The sounds around her were gone, replaced with endless ringing. "I think you meant queen." "What?" Before Scarlet could finish processing the words, or if they were inside her head or out, Scarlet lunged. She leaped over at Alpine, who was now eating her food peacefully, like she had never said a word. At the commotion, for a brief second, she was able to look at the dragon coming at her. Scarlet sliced the advisor with her claws, sending blood pouring from the wounds down her face. She screeched with genuine horror, appalled. She could barely put a talon up to feel the blood before Scarlet dived towards her chest, and in one swift movement, stabbed it. Alpine's eyes rolled in the back of her head, body going limp. The entire room was silent, but only for a moment. Shouts of surprise, shock, and raw fear were all that could be heard, but Scarlet barely listened, only making out her mother's voice. "What are you doing?" The Skying Princess looked down at the blood over her claws, shaking her head. "What am I doing?" she asked, puffing up her chest. "I'm not the one who allows anybody to think they have power over royalty. No one is better than me." Some dragons scrambled to leave, while others remained frozen in their places. Scarlet jumped towards her mother, pushing her back. The two tumbled down the dining hall, landing on an outlook ledge. The rain lashed at them, each drop from above seeming to slice their scales like a knife. Scarlet's thighs were dripping with blood, and she hissed. Firestorm tried standing up, only for Scarlet to breathe fire at her. It missed her face, though scourged her ear, causing Firestorm to howl in agony. She scratched Scarlet a few times. The princess paid no attention to the wounds. Instead, she pushed her mother back further, where she slipped on the smooth, wet stones of the lookout ledge. Firestorm's head hit the ground. "I could have ignored that, you know. I could have made it go away." Scarlet ignored her. "When I'm queen, our tribe will be stronger than it ever was. I will be the strongest, fiercest, most beautiful dragon to rule in the continent. My reign will be endless, my reach never ceasing. I know you. You have never had the guts to be the queen this world needs. Me? I'm not going to waste my years sitting on a pretty throne and talking about how the sky seems to be against us. I'll be pitting the world against us if that's what it takes to show my power. I will never be forgotten, never killed by any dragon's claws." She stabbed one final talon into her mother, whose expression was one of pure shock and dismay. "I will have my retribution on this world. I will never let any dragon beat me or tell me what to do. I will create weapons, wield power. And most of all, it will be thrilling." With those words, she sent one final claw into her mother's gaping wound. With a cry of pain, she went silent, breathing stopping abruptly. Her body grew stiff for a moment, but went soft. Scarlet turned to face those who watched, her subjects. "I am Queen of the SkyWings." She breathed heavily, the only sound that could be heard in the silence. "Mother wanted to stop the festivities? Why do we have to do that now? You know, every time I've looked down at that pit she hosts her contests in, I've seen more than shows. I've seen possibility. The possibility for something greater. We don't need dragons to come to us. We have plenty in our prisons now. What do we need them for, really? I think we all deserve some thrill, some excitement. What better way to restore the fear than watching as our own enemies cut each other's throats? I am Queen Scarlet, ruler of the SkyWings, and my reign will never end." A crackle of lightning illuminated her dark, chilling expression, and all the other dragons could do was watch. Anyway, that's it for this video. I hope you guys liked the first installment of my series. Nay, if you did, let me know if you'd be down for seeing more videos like this. They're not exactly what-ifs, but rather my own ideas on characters past that we have never really seen explored. And who better to start with than Scarlet? But anyways, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!